Hello and welcome to this video. Have you ever tried to start your car but you get nothing? Well, stay tuned to this video. We'll look at problems you may face with your starter, which is the main component for starting your car. First of all, you wanna test the battery to make sure it's not drained. Here you can see it's 12.35 volts. As long as the battery is above 12 volts, then you rule out the battery as the problem. Next, I'm gonna test this connector. This one goes to the starter. Now you want to get 12 volts on that when you turn on your key. You see the starter is not running because I've disconnected it. So now I'll connect the multimeter to that connector and the other terminal to the battery, negative. So let's see what happens when you turn on the key. Find a suitable place to place my multimeter. It can just stay there. Okay, let's turn on the key and see. See, we are getting 12 volts there. So this rules out the fuse. You know the fuse is okay, you know the switch is okay. You know the problem is not inside the car, but the starter itself. To remove the starter, you first remove the negative terminal. Get the negative terminal, just remove it from the battery. This is the connector to the starter. I've already removed it. Now in this car, the starter is held by three 13mm bolts. You need to get them off. This is a VW Polo. You get those off and get the starter loose. Okay, so now I have the bolts off. I'll just pull out the starter. Just slowly pull it out. It has a couple of connections on it from the positive terminal of the battery, and that is the reason we remove the negative terminal to prevent any shorting when you are removing the starter. Otherwise you get a huge spark if the starter touches the body of the car. Now this wire is held by a 13mm nut, which you need to remove to get out that cable. Just remove it by hand after loosening it. And there we go. So now the starter is free. Now get it out. Now we are going to dismantle the starter. Since we know the problem is inside the starter itself. Another 13mm nut, you need to remove that. Get it loose. Okay, that wire is free. Need to open those bolts and a couple of screws and remove those washers. This is the back of the starter. We need to remove that cap off to see so you can see the inside. Okay, this is the inside. This is the brushes. You can see they look worn out. Just use this socket to hold them in place so it will be easier to put them back. Use a socket and then you just slide it to the socket. There you go. You can see it there. You have the stator. It's a very thick coil. the part that spins in between the magnets. Looking at these brushes, they are worn out, so I'll replace them. Maybe that may be one of the causes why this starter doesn't work sometimes. These are the new brushes. Now you can get the entire assembly of the brushes, but this time I just got the brushes themselves, which I'm gonna solder on the assembly. And compare the new versus the old ones. So this one will go inside those chambers. There's a spring in there. This pushes them out to contact the stator. This is the new one. I'm holding the camera, but they just go in there. Need to solder them in place. Make sure you get a very good quality solder wire that would come off when the starter is running. Goes right in there. So you should be able to move back and forth. Now I already soldered them, as you can see, and put back the brushes. I've used this socket to hold them in place. This is the stator. You can see part of the coil was scratched. The magnets were loose too, so you have to put them back. This is what I used to stick them back in place. This is actually what I've found to not come off after a few uses. Some kind of epoxy. Looks like you see, you need it, but then it will dry into a rock. It will look like a rock once it dry, as you can see. Just put it beside the magnet. Okay, now everything is done. I'll put back the starter and let's see. I think it works now perfectly well. And that's it.